The rain drummed a steady, rhythmic beat against the shingles of Willow Creek Cottage, a sound that usually lulled Joan and Alice to sleep. But on this particular Tuesday night, the two chums were wide awake, their eyes fixed on the dark wooden ceiling above them. "Did you hear that?" whispered Alice, pulling the patchwork quilt up to her chin. Her blue eyes were wide with a mixture of thrill and trepidation. Joan, the older and more practical of the two, sat up and brushed a stray lock of dark hair from her forehead. "It was just the wind in the elms, Alice. You know how Aunt Matilda says this old house sings in the storm?" Tap, tap, scrape. The sound was distinct this time, not the howling wind, but a deliberate, rhythmic noise coming from directly overhead. The attic. "That wasn't the wind," insisted Alice, sitting up beside her friend. "That sounded like footsteps or a signal." Joan frowned, listening completely. The girls were spending their summer vacation at their aunt's rambling countryside cottage, a place filled with dusty nooks, smelling of lavender and old paper. The attic, however, was strictly for storage, filled with trunks that hadn't been opened since their mother was a little girl. "It is coming from the attic," Joan admitted, her voice dropping to a hush. A spark of determination lit her eyes. "And we aren't going to sleep a wink until we find out what it is. Coming with me, Alice?" Alice took a deep breath. She wasn't as bold as Joan, but she wouldn't be left behind. "Yes, but let's take the flashlight." Slipping out of their warm beds, the girls donned their robes and slippers. Joan grabbed the heavy iron flashlight from the bedside table. The beam cut a yellow swath through the darkness of the hallway as they crept toward the narrow staircase that led up to the attic. The air grew cooler as they climbed, the smell of rain and old cedar wood growing stronger. The tap, tap, scrape continued, louder now. "It's coming from the east corner," Joan whispered, "near the old sea captain's chest." They reached the top landing. The attic was a cavern of shadows, filled with shapes of draped furniture that looked like sleeping giants. Joan swept the light across the room. Dust motes danced in the beam. Tap, tap, tap. "There!" Alice pointed. In the far corner, near a loose window shutter, a small shadow darted. It wasn't a ghost, and it wasn't a burglar. Joan let out a breath she didn't know she was holding and giggled. "Look, Alice, it's a squirrel." A small red squirrel, seeking shelter from the storm, had squeezed through a gap in the eaves. It was scratching at a loose floorboard, trying to bury an acorn it had miraculously carried in. "Oh, the poor little thing," Alice said, her fear vanishing instantly. As the squirrel scampered up a rafter to hide from the light, Joan moved closer to where the creature had been scratching. The floorboard there was loose, levered up by the squirrel's persistent digging. But it wasn't just dust beneath the board. "Hello," Joan said, kneeling down. "What's this?" Wedged between the joists, revealed by the loose board, was a small rectangular object wrapped in oilcloth. Carefully, Joan lifted it out. It was a metal tin, rusted shut with age. The girls huddled together on an old rug, the flashlight propped between them. With a bit of effort, Joan pried the lid open. Inside, resting on a bed of velvet, lay 2 silver lockets and a yellowed piece of paper. Alice carefully unfolded the note. The handwriting was elegant and faded. "To my dearest sister, on the day of our secret pact, may we always be true friends, no matter where life takes us. M. 1924. M, mused Alice. That must be Aunt Matilda. And the sister, That would be Grandma. Joan opened one of the lockets. Inside was a tiny black and white photograph of two young girls looking remarkably like Joan and Alice standing in front of this very cottage, arms linked. "They hid this for each other," Joan said softly, "just like we hide our secret notes." The storm outside seemed less dreary now. The mystery of the tapping noise had solved itself, but it had uncovered a much sweeter secret, a memory of friendship preserved in the dust of the old attic. "We should put it back," Alice suggested, "or maybe show Aunt Matilda in the morning." "In the morning," Joan agreed, closing the tin. "Tonight it's our discovery." They left the squirrel to his warm corner and crept back down the stairs, the old house feeling less like a spooky mystery and more like a home watching over them. As they climbed back into their beds, the rain sounded different. It wasn't a gloomy drum anymore. It was a gentle lullaby, singing of sisters, secrets, and summers past. "Good night, Joan," whispered Alice, drifting off. "Good night, Alice," Joan replied, smiling in the dark. And the only sound left was the wind wrapping the cottage in a safe, sleepy embrace.